before I let them talk, okay, ako muna magkasalita. Let me just give you a very quick background of who Samuel Beckett is. But to be really short and sweet, Beckett ay isang writer na napakahirap intindihin. Sabi nga nila, he is a writer, theater of the absurd. Ganun yung pagkakakilala namin sa kanya. And I worked for a play for Beckett, Waiting for Godot, one of his famous plays. And he is a Protestant, born as a Protestant, and then became linked with someone in literature, literary arts, and then became an activist. Why? Why? Kasi I don't want to spoil you. Ayoko kayong kunin yung pagkakataon na yun, nakilalanin siya. Because it's very important for you to know him personally by knowing him, reading about him. Because it's hard to understand this play pag nanood kayo, and you would really just understand the play once you watch it if you know him more. If you understand who he is personally. Not from other people, but from you personally. So I suggest right now, after watching this, read about Samuel Beckett. It's worth your time. Short and sweet lang. So, yun. So, moving on, let's start now discussing about fragments. Works of Samuel Beckett, visualized and created on stage by Peter Brook. Let me give you Jenny to discuss who Peter Brook is.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Peter Brook as brief as possible because last time I did an introduction, it wasn't so brief, sabi nga ni Joel, no? So magbabasa na lang. Papasahin ko na lang para siguradong brief na siya. Okay. So Peter Brook is the most consistently innovative director in Western theater. He has been a director of the Royal Shakespeare Company and currently heads the International Center of Theater Research in Paris. He has directed over 60 productions. So he's quite prolific, even for his old age now. In recent years, these have included the Mahabharata, Cherry Orchard, and The Tempest. And his most recent production, The Man Who and Olebio Jour, I don't know French. And he has written 2 previous books, The Empty Space, that's in 1968, and The Shifting Point, the 1987, and has just completed his biography. I don't know how recent this biography is. Kasi, this is my one and only book from Peter Brook. It's called There Are No Secrets, Thoughts on Acting and Theater. So what's really special about Peter Brook is that his most famous philosophy is the empty space. So he argues that in the theater, all you really need is an empty space in order to really activate the imagination of the actors and the audience involved. No? One of his most famous production is in the 70s, yung rendition niya of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which he only used a white box for his stage. And then yun na yung scenography niya for A Midsummer Night's Dream, a white box.
Which is bold because Midsummer Nights is parang fantasy world.
It's a fantasy world. It's highly scenic for a lot of production designers. But he made that really bold move. You know? So I guess you can say that he's one of the really well-known minimalist directors out there. But he's also done really interesting scenographies, for the stage. But apart from that, he's also a filmmaker. His most famous film is actually The Lord of the Flies in 19...
escaping me, but
but it's around in the 50s or
siguro.
60s, Lord of the Flies. No? So he's also a very accomplished filmmaker as well. Yun, ang aking very, very brief because I want to talk about him more in this process. So he took on the really daunting task, at least for all directors, of directing Fragments by Samuel Beckett. So it's 5 short plays of Samuel Beckett.
Before siguro we start discussing our thoughts about the play, I just like to share something Peter Brook said about fragments, and especially about Becket. He said that Becket was a perfectionist, but can one be a perfectionist without an intuition of perfection? Parang that idea na when you read kasi Becket, I was able to read the four of the five plays that were featured here. And it's very messy how he writes, si Becket. Pero the thing about his messiness is that it's all done with a perfectionist point of view or parang a mentality na he's trying to parang be obscure, but he's carefully being obscure.
You know, when I first saw this one, I was actually very scared to watch it kasi yung sa thumbnail pa lang, parang nakikita mo na kasi siya na very bare na yung setting niya, no? And I was very very scared to watch it because I've been a big fan of Peter Brook because I've read a lot of his essays, and yung mga essays niya on directing and acting really, I guess you can say, it was a very big influence for me, no? So, and I was very worried to watch it kasi parang, I guess yung worry mo na parang, what if I get disappointed by watching it by one of my idols? But I'm very pleased to say that when I watched it I was, again, I'm quite biased because I've read about Brooke a lot, and I'm also a Beckett fan as well. I was very pleased by what I watched because of the simplicity of the direction and how he didn't try to over direct a piece so complicated as Beckett's pieces, no. Instead na it was directing but not directing at the same time. He made sure that he wasn't so much overpowering the real meat of the plays, which is the writing of Beckett himself. No? So I'll say that for now. No? But I'd like to. I'm interested to hear more from the rest of you. What are your thoughts about Fragments?
Yeah.
I really like the stage. It's it's malaki, and it's not exactly bare, but it has this very it had like it's almost like it's an alley or a warehouse. It had this kind of parang urban structure, and but yung sheer magnitude of the space really kind of gives you this very dramatic, very theatrical feel to it already. And then and then yung characters, it's either one person or one person or two people are enter the stage at once. So it has this. If he doesn't flood the stage, he doesn't fill up the stage with 10 people or a crowd or a chorus. There's only one person or two people speaking, and in that alone, there's a very poetic appeal already, and very as a viewer, very interesting na siya kaagad. And then of course the material they use, yung absurd na siya, the absurd, very playful, and you never know what to expect. Yun yung kind of what I liked about it, that you were just kind of watching and then you're ready to be surprised. And by the script, by the acting, by the directing, there's full of parang you never know about what's gonna enter the scene. So that's kind of what I really appreciated about it. It was funny. It was so funny, and yet it didn't try so hard to be. It just let the directing, the writing, and the acting, all of it coming together and makes it absurd, and that in itself was already funny. It's not like a punchline kind of joking, It's just that it's showing how absurd the situation is, and it And that's what I appreciated about it. It was a wonderful way of storytelling na very creative. Very inspiring siya.
Brooke also touched upon what people thought about Beckett. Beckett kasi usually he's geared like towards like a very pessimistic, doom and gloom. He's actually not funny to a lot of like traditionalists. So parang this is kind of like a very refreshing take on Beckett. Na he's actually, you know, pessimistic nga siya, but he's actually very, very funny. And kasi the version na Jenny watched of Rockabye, it's not as funny as this one.
No,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk about siguro as we go along. We'll talk about you know the fragments, the plays in detail.
What are the plays again?
That's Rough for Theater, Rockabye,
More? Till in the end,
Act
A
Without
Day.
Words, Neither, Gun and Go, Okay, so Rough for Theater, Rockabye, Act Without Words, Neither, and then Gun and Go.
Oo.
The 5.
Yan.
Okay, yun lang.
Ayun. For me, it's, pagkakita ko pala ng play, it's very minimalist. And then, 2 actors, a very huge stage. Ang initial, ang initial thought ko was, the actors must be good here. With that kind of stage, to take the audience attention, and I imagining the stage na ang audience, maraming audience sa paligid nila. I can't see it yet. Wala, nakita ko lang yung audience ng last na. But I'm imagining na ganun karaming audience. And they must be good because with that kind of stage, they must take control and own that huge stage. Own that audience na, hey, I'm here with this huge stage. You need to watch me. Okay, for the first play, Rock for the Theater, okay, kasi I felt like it's like a Waiting for Godot, you know? Parang, okay, it's a Beckett play. Okay, I'm going to like this. I'm excited. And then come Rockabye or Rockabye. Si Ate Catherine. Na-in love agad ako kay Ate Catherine. And wow, wala. Magaling yung dalawang actors, 3 silang actors din, no? Magaling yung dalawa, no? Bow talaga, but si Ate Catherine sobra eh. Talagang you will have to wait for the line that she will say every time she's going to say something. Ganung klase. Tapos, I'm so excited na talagang inabahan ko siya up to the end na although nag-enjoy rin ako, kumbaga yung for me kasi yung flow ng whole fragment for me. I'm enjoying the 2 together. Yeah, sarap panoorin dalawa. And then I'm gonna watch Ate Catherine. Wow. Ano nga sabihin niya? Every moment, every performance, every line. I have to wait for what she's going to say because I'm at awe. And then dalawa na naman sila. And then at the end, 3 na sila. Wow. Wow. Yun talaga yung, yung comment ko. Bare stage, minimal stage sets, and knowing that you have to catch the attention of all that audience. And nagulat pa ako nung end, which is, there's a big dome pala with a lot of audience there. All are standing and clapping for them. That must really be good. Enjoy na nga ako sa TV, watching it. Talagang nilaligo pa rin sa screen to really watch it big, not just on the phone as usually I do. Like the other play I watch sa phone lang. But this one, I have to watch it on the television, a big screen, and really enjoyed it a lot. Yun lang.
I think my favorite is Act Without Words. Ito ata yung
Yung merong God na may pin.
yung dalawa sila.
Yeah.
Silang men who enter and exit from the
Yung
sack.
may sack. And then,
I think
one of them is a pessimist, one is optimistic, yung isa, di ba? Very
ayun ba?
fine yung performance, di
Ayun
ba?
ba?
Oh, yun.
Hindi ko masyado. There's a lot to, you might, parang syempre sa unang watch, there, you might not understand it kaagad. Diba? But I appreciated it, of course, even if I didn't understand every single part. But ang nagustuhan ko ngayon yung Act Without Words. Kasi na-intrigue ako sa how they would enter the sack and they would take off their clothes or put on the clothes. It's all very kind of crazy and at the same time, magical. Theater magic siya para sa akin.
Para siyang Diana, it's like Kafka. Parang yung that existentialist na interesting siya, interesting.
Yeah.
Just to give a bit of I guess intro to Beckett, no. The reason why I think people are having a hard time understanding Beckett or any writer for that matter is that parang it's you also have to understand the milieu where he came from. So he's a writer na became more prominent after World War II. So I mentioned this, I think, before regarding UK, the state of United Kingdom post World War II. World War II is actually a very significant event for the British people because it really devastated the UK in a lot of ways, no. And that's why actually the pessimistic British, it really happened because of World War II. It didn't happen during Shakespeare's time. It didn't happen during Victorian era. Yung pessimism nila really started after World War II. And that's when Beckett, that also affected the writings of Beckett. It's very existential. It's very absurd. And to the point na he was already, I'll be bold enough to say it, he really reinvented the wheel for playwriting. Kasi he was really testing the boundaries of how to write for drama. And it really tested a lot of directors and actors how to deliver a performance on stage, especially a piece of writing that's very absurd. It's very existential. It's basically when you look at all his writings, no, parang nothing is happening, but something is happening at the same time. So parang ganun yung, I think that's the backdrop of why he writes certain things, of why parang yung approach niya towards life is quite bleak. Actually, yung attitude niya is quintessential British post World War II. And that's why may pagka-messy siya, but at the same time, there's a poetry into it. There's a very dark poetry into it. And a very dark humor that goes with it then. Kasi kina-question na niya, like, what's life now after one catastrophe after the other, diba?
Yeah, I guess I just want to say, like Diana rin, I'm not familiar kasi with Beckett. So this is kind of like my first experience of reading and kind of studying Beckett.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to throw like an off-ball question to you guys. Medyo it's very obscure tong what we're reviewing the play. And it's very, I guess, absurd, abstract, poetic, all of these things. Would you think na this is kind of like high art to a lot of people? It's something that I want to ask, yeah.
It's funny. Actually, naintindihan ko siya, even if I would have understood it more if I studied Beckett. But actually, just watching it right now, actually naintindihan ko siya eh. Na-appreciate ko siya, and parang natawa naman ako sa mga jokes, just like the audience. I felt that I appreciated it, even if I did not study Beckett. I mean, watching a play is already giving you the information that you need, that the scene itself is already feeding you what you have to know to understand it. Even if siguro, yun na nga there's levels of understanding. Maybe you can understand it on a deeper level. But for me, ano ba yung theater, di ba? If it's entertaining, you can tell naman if it's good just by watching it. And for me, anybody would be entertained by this. Anybody would be intrigued by this. Anybody would find this interesting and would listen or continue watching. And that's, I think, yung galing ng direction and production and everything is that it draws you in, in its absurdity. It's not demanding you to think a certain way. It's not demanding the audience to be a certain level of educated. I don't think so. And so to answer your question, Bonsky, I think that anybody would be entertained by these plays.
For me, my take on this one is that this particular performance and the treatment was entertaining, enjoyable, and understandable, not because of Becket, but because of the treatment created by Peter Brook and his co-director, okay? And also the actors. I don't, kasi if you're gonna read the script plainly, still Becket, it will be hard to understand this one. Just imagine Rockaby reading it and just reading it kasi ulit siya di ba? It's a repetition of words. And then without that performance of Ate Catherine, you won't really understand it. You won't see the vision that she's seeing. But because of the performance and of course the treatment of Peter Brook with the pieces, that makes the wonders of it. So I think that's the question to answer. Yes, this performance is enjoyable and entertaining, but I'm not sure if someone else can live up to it, like what Peter Brook did with these pieces.
Yeah, I think I told this to Blonsky last night because we were watching.
Yeah, and we were actually, guys, we were sleepy when we watched this.
But so, we were like, let's watch it, and then we were just blown away, But I was telling him, Becket is actually it's a very intimidating writer to deal with in theater, and I think it requires a very brave director to deal with a writing such as Becket, because I've seen some Becket plays before, and they're nothing like how Brook treated them, because they really went all the way gothic or really absurd. They really dressed up the scenography and all that, diba? So it left a lot of people confused, I think, and it left a lot of people I guess repelled by the idea of Becket. So it's quite admirable actually how Brook approached it, and I think in order to tackle a work such as Beckett's plays, you need to be a certain level of caliber as a director, like Peter Brook, and for actors then, I think for actors you have to have a certain level of bravery, of strong instincts, of the ability of being present to be able to tackle a work such as Beckett's plays, because it's the theme is consistent all throughout. He talks about the usefulness of life, but also the uselessness of life at the same time. So combining those two complexities together, and for any artist to be able to approach Beckett's work, you have to be in a certain level of bravery, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you read the scripts of these 5 plays, it's very specific na may direction si Becket na sinasabi niya sa director na you need to do it this way.
Yeah.
Pero for me, like the bravery of Peter Brook to actually, especially with Rockabye, Rockabye kasi it's about like it's based on the yung that lullaby na Rockabye baby on the treetop, blah blah. It has that parang duality na yung it's a lullaby about birth and death.
Yes.
And in that play kasi may specific na instruction si Beckett sa director na kailangan ganito yung ilaw, kailangan ganito yung acting, yung Pippin nakasara yung mata niya dito, etc. Parang it's very specific. And for me, like, Brooke had the audacity to actually say, no, I'm not gonna follow you, Beckett. I'm gonna do this piece the way I want it to be performed. And that was very admirable. Kasi the other plays were actually very faithful to Beckett's direction.
Yeah.
And siguro another question I want to ask the group is, the pieces kasi they're very text heavy. Parang they're very dependent on English text or the language. Wouldn't you think that will alienate or parang put off some people that don't speak English?
I think yes, it could be, if you're the type of audience who's so obsessed with text, because I know certain audience members or certain people who are looking for that text or who are very dependent on their yung theatrical experience nila or yung viewing experience nila is very, very dependent on the text and their understanding of the text. But I think for in this case, parang even sa tingin ko lang, even if you don't understand English culture or English text, it's the energy that comes out of it. You understand energy and the energy that's being radiated from these performances, and I think that one alone, that's quite universal already.
How about you guys?
Pwede na nating
There's yung sinasabi ko ngang the one I like the most. Wala nga siyang words eh. So I think a lot of the plays, a lot of it is action based. Body language most of all, I think, and facial expressions, and I think that's universal.
Ako naman based on, di ba Becket is, when he writes, it's out of context, out of reasoning, out of logic. So I don't think it will be necessary for me to understand what the person is saying kung nagpa-perform siya. So once hindi siguro English yun, as long as tama nga si Jenny, as long as the energy is there and I can feel the energy coming out from the performance or the whole production, I will still accept it. Singit ko na rin, kasi before, personal experience working with Becket, Waiting for Godot, we have this feedback from the audience na, what did you like about the play? Did you like the play? Interestingly, meron dong batch of audience na mga high school students, and I know that you won't understand the play. Yun nga, halagay ron, I didn't understand it, but I like it. So, yun siguro yun. Kasi they won't really understand Becket if you don't know how he writes and if you don't know what his background is. But as long as you understand and feel the performance coming from the actors and the whole production, I think you will accept it, whatever the language is.
But like, what's so amazing about this is that yung Rockabye, it was done 40 years ago. As in exactly 40 years ago. But imagine like a 40-year-old text, and it's actually one of the more fresher texts that I've ever read, theatrical texts. And yun yung parang something that I want to mention. I want to say something out. I want to say something that might be a little controversial.
Ooh.
So yung I just want to say kasi na there's that misconception kasi na in order for you to be controversial, you need to be vulgar or explicit.
Boom.
You need to use like sex or parang extreme relationships. When sometimes the language itself. Wait, kayo tumatawa. Seryoso.
Are you coming from just the play that we watched previously?
Yeah, that's why. I'm trying to bridge it. But yun parang that idea na you don't have to use those avenues to be controversial. All you need is the language, the beauty of language, whether it's English, Tagalog. Like Beckett. Beckett just used language, didn't use like overly powering set. All he used was language and imagination, and that's all you need to actually steer controversy towards your audience.
The thing is that we're not prudes here, diba? Parang we're all artists. We're open to the idea of staging sex, drugs, and alcohol and violence on stage if necessary, right? But the thing about vulgarity is that what is your thesis statement for justifying the vulgarity on stage, diba? So parang what's the justification? Why is it there? What's the purpose of it? Ano yung thesis statement mo? Because if you're just shocking for shock's sake, diba? Then it's not a very solid foundation to tell a story. Unlike yung kay Beckett. Beckett is so simple. His thesis statement is basically what is life, and he says it with such parang not even a very positive tone, but it really questions you. What is life? Is life about these repetitive words? Is life about these routines that we're going through? Is life about the symbiotic relationships that we have with one another and the betrayal that we commit to one another? And and that's with that alone, that's already a controversial statement. In general about vulgarity, and the thing is that Beckett is controversial without having to resort to vulgarities.
Yes, that's it lang. I mean, that's on our end. That's Beckett and Brook and Fragments.